Welcome to Transformational Leadership in Transformational Times. I'm here with my friend Mark Vandeneind, the founder of Being at Full Potential, and Tanya Gonzalez, the Executive Director of Sacred Heart Center. I'll ask you, if you haven't done so already, to enter into the chat where you're from and perhaps the organization you work with, so that all the attendees can see who is on this webinar. Just take a minute or two to do that if you haven't done so already. Aha, Paris, Victoria, BC, Mexico City. Wow. Hi, Peter, Natalie. Welcome. So, Mark, in keeping with our focus on the inner dimensions of being at full potential, would you please lead us in a brief recentering?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would love to do that. And for that, I'll just ask everyone to, again, find a comfortable spot wherever you are, where you can feel your feet on the ground. And you might want to just sit back, straighten your spine, and come fully present into this moment, to this next hour together. And let us just reground in the intention of this webinar series. So just a reminder for people who have joined us already, but a refresher also for those who are joining us today for the first time. So this webinar series was conceived to really shine the light on some of the amazing stories of these transformational leaders that we at Being at Full Potential have been fortunate to work with over the last 2 years. We felt that now is the time to bring these stories to light and to inspire all of us who are seeking to bring change into our organizations, into our lives. It's also an opportunity to reground in the transformational leader that is already within ourselves, within all of us. And just to connect with that, to acknowledge that leader within. And maybe for those who have been joining us in the last couple of calls, just to notice how that transformational leader might be responding to these sessions. Are you noticing perhaps some new insights, some new questions arise? Some new ideas for action to take coming through. Just take a moment to reflect on that. Thank you. So now I would like to introduce Tanya Gonzalez, our guest for today. So she is an incredibly inspirational leader. Tanya Gonzalez joined the Sacred Heart Center as the Executive Director in July 2016, where she and her team of passionate community builders served the Latino families with innovative programs in the Richmond, Virginia area. Their work mainly revolves around education, culture, and essentially creating a safe home for their community. Tanya's leadership has been recognized on several occasions. In May 2015, she received the UCROP Community Vision Award. In 2018, she was awarded the Inclusive Communities Humanitarian Award. And in 2020, she was recognized as a Richmond History Maker by the Valentine Museum. In her free time, Tanya coordinates a dance group at the Sacred Heart Center and performs traditional Latin American and Spanish dance in the Richmond area. Welcome, Tanya. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today. I would also like to take just a moment to introduce the amazing team that has been supporting Tanya and her staff over the past 12 months. And that is Rodrigo, who is originally from Mexico, but living in the Netherlands right now. We have Natalie, living in Paris. And then we have a dear friend, Peter Leong, all the way from New Zealand. And I believe it's 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. in New Zealand right now. And he's with us today. So thank you very much, Peter. And thank you for the amazing work that you've been doing with the Sacred Heart Center over the last 12 months. So this first 30 minutes, we will have a conversation with Tanya. She will share a bit of her story, and then the second half of the call today, again, we will open it up for questions. So as you listen, just take note of any questions or any remarks that you would like to bring up in that second half. And then we will also bring in Peter, Natalie, and Rod so that they can also support in answering some of those questions. All right, so Tanya, would you be able to tell us a little bit about these two pillars, which I feel are extremely important for you as a person and also for the Sacred Heart Center, which are community and culture? I hear these words come up very often, and I know they're very important to you. So if you could just give us a little bit of a flavor of what that, tell us a little bit about that, and also a little bit about how our work with you has contributed to building community and building culture.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And thank you so much for creating this space for me to share our story at Sacred Heart Center and the way we've been working with you all. So Sacred Heart Center in Richmond, Virginia connects Latino families with tools to thrive and flourish. And when I think of the two pillars that you've mentioned, community and culture, they're really embedded in our mission, which I just shared. And it's become even more apparent to me of the importance of these two pillars during this pandemic, because so much of community and culture involves presence. And that's a key factor in what the Sacred Heart Center creates, which is a space for community to be present and to celebrate our culture. And we continue to do that now, even in a more virtual space, even with the challenges around having to close our building to the public for the last few months. But before the pandemic and during what I would call regular operations of the Sacred Heart Center, what we are creating on a daily basis through our programs is community, is a space where people feel welcome, where people feel that they belong, especially in particular families that have migrated to the US, to the Richmond area, and maybe outside of that center feel that they don't belong or experience discrimination or rejection, isolation. So again, that sense of community, that sense of belonging, which is really, I think, speaks to our shared humanity, which is part of our vision as an organization. And then extending that to culture, feeling that you're seen, that you're celebrated, that your culture is important is the other aspect. And in particular with our youth that we serve, we find that this is really important, because youth that are straddling two or more cultures, and I include myself, my own personal experience in that, a lot of times will be out in the world and won't know how to be proud of themselves or where they belong. So, again, with our youth in particular, celebrating their identity and their culture through our bicultural and bilingual programs is a way to build that strength and resilience for when they go back out into the world. So that's how I would speak to both of those pillars.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. I know the work that we have done with you has been around that theme of culture. Can you talk a little bit about how that has fit into to this overall picture?
Sure. So the work that we've done with you all has been specific to our internal culture. Sacred Heart Center has experienced a lot of really incredible growth in the last few years. The staff size from when I joined, you mentioned in the introduction, July of 2016 to now, our staff has tripled. Our budget has quadrupled. And with that growth, which is amazing and incredible, and we're very blessed, also comes a lot of challenges. So we really needed to do some work internally at that time, about a year ago, when we began working together a little over a year ago, to strengthen our internal culture. And what I mean by that is really, every aspect of how we're interacting as a team, how we communicate with each other, how we treat each other, the processes that we're building as new people, we're joining the team. And it's not often, I think, that organizations take that time to be intentional. And I just had a board member this morning let me know how wonderful it was to hear about the project recently in a board meeting. And he himself said, especially in particular, I think in the nonprofit sector, that doesn't happen very often. So it was an intentional decision, really driven by the growth that we had experiencing. And I knew that we needed some attention and TLC, if you will, to the staff and the team. And you all were a great fit for that.
Thank you. There are two specific areas that I know Rod and the team often refer to. The first one is spread the wealth. Mm-hmm. And the other one is from I to we. That throughout this last year, there's been a big focus on spreading the wealth and on moving from the individual to the collective. Mm-hmm. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yes. So the other thing that happened is that we entered into this pandemic, which was, of course, unexpected. And the way it worked out was, to have you all accompany our team during that time was really almost like a lifeboat, if you will, or life jacket. And so both of those phrases came out through our work during this pandemic. Part of the project involved coaching with you all and the amazing team that's on the call with us, Natalie, Rod, Peter, just been incredible. And so, but we weren't able to offer that to the full team, to all of our 30 staff. We had 9 people that were able to have that support. And so Spread the Wealth was really a challenge, if you will, to them to make sure and share what they were learning and their growth with the full team. Mm-hmm. So wanting to make sure that everyone was impacted. Mm-hmm. And then the I to the we as well. So the transformation, has been at different levels with the work that we've done, because there was also, facilitation of our full staff meetings that we did. And the individual coaching did start with the I, but again, in that same vein of spreading the wealth, moving that I to a we, to the collective full staff. Both of those were the driving factors and the goal really of the work that we've done together.
Yeah, lovely. And that's really the key to culture development, internal culture development, is that I think the transformation always has to start at an individual level and then start to ripple out to impact the collective. Are there any examples that come to mind on how you've seen that manifest, this I to the we impact? Are there any examples that you can think of right now?
Yeah, I think in particular, one of the staff that has shared his journey was really powerful, because he is a supervisor, but a lot of times would take things on himself. So his first realization that he shared was that he needed to take care of himself to then be there for his team. So that was the I part that was really amazing to witness and manifest in him, and the way he began modeling self-care for his own team. In particular, with the additional demands that have been on all of us during this pandemic time. And then from there, he moved it to the we by wanting to, in turn, empower his staff versus him doing the tasks, coming to that realization that he needed to. It might take a little more time on the front end, but invest that time in empowering and developing his staff. So that's one specific example that I saw happen and unfold over these last few months.
Yeah, great. Last time we spoke, you shared about the increase in inventiveness or in creativity that you saw, especially under the pressure situation of the pandemic, and you beautifully referred to. Let me just share that. You beautifully referred to the framework that we use. That came out as a result of the assessment that we did with the whole staff back in the beginning of 2020. This was the outcome, kind of the overall score of the organization. And one of the things that stood out was that the being inspired state was mainly underexpressed. So the dimensions of play and curiosity and facing the unknown and being in the flow were quite a bit lower than some of the other dimensions in this framework. And when we spoke last time, you referred to this and you kind of connected the dot to the increase in creativity that you saw recently. Can you speak a bit about that?
Yes. So these were the results about a year ago of the team at that time, as you mentioned, and the pandemic really pushed us out of our comfort zone as a team on every level possible. We found ourselves having to reimagine our entire offerings to our community, as well as to create new ways of accompanying the families that we serve because of the pressures of the pandemic, of the economic situation, of the racial and social unrest, all of that. So our team was faced with, in 2 weeks, basically moving all of our in-person educational programs to virtual offerings. Within another 2 weeks, another part of our team was tasked with creating a brand new program to offer financial assistance to families for housing. We were tasked within a week to expand our food pantry to serve, now weekly hundreds of people that are coming to receive food assistance. So all of that occurred essentially between March 16th and the beginning of April. So within 2 weeks, for better or for worse, and really out of our control. I think if we were at that, at that time to retake this survey, we probably would have had purple on the being inspired column. And it hasn't been easy. And the staff, I think has done an amazing job and is also, very, very stretched. So I don't want to, on the one hand, while it's been amazing to witness and be a part of it, it's, I want to highlight, the difficulty around it. The other image that comes to mind is a seed. Basically to be able to grow into a plant, it's got to lose and burst through its entire shell, and in a way destroy itself to then, be able to flower. So that's the other image that comes to mind as well. So that's what we've, had to do in these last few months. And there's been a lot of learning, a lot of growth, and we continue to, in Spanish, the word is pulir, to smoothen and to polish all of those changes as we keep moving forward through this time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes pressure brings out the best in us, right? It's can really bring us together too in pretty amazing ways. Thank you for sharing that. I know that you also have a short video that was created to show a little bit in images, right? And images how you responded in these times. I'd be happy to share it now. It's a 2-minute little video. We could maybe watch it together. Is there something you would like to say and to introduce it?
Just that I'm hopeful that you all will get a better sense of our story, of the story of our community and the way that we've shown up through this video, other than me sharing as well. So that's my hope in sharing it with all of you.
Thank you. All right, let's see if this, hopefully, I can get this to work. There we go. Beautiful. So stepping out of our comfort zones and reinventing ourselves. Yeah, beautiful. You also mentioned something in our last call about knowing for sure that it's not going to go back to, once the pandemic is under control, that things aren't going to go back to the way they were before. You had this real sense that there's a new reality there to be created. And I of course, you don't know exactly what it is yet, right? But you're in that, it feels like you're quite comfortable in that not knowing space.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's been apparent really since the beginning, with all the shifts and changes and transitions, that we won't be going, quote unquote, back to normal. And I think right now for me, the important thing is to be trying to look ahead as much as possible, as much as it is uncertain, and keeping an eye on what trends may be bubbling up, thinking through what it will mean to come back into the building. So I spoke at the beginning of the importance of community and culture, but if things do look different, then what will those pillars mean, and how will we need to nurture them once we are back in our building? So these are questions that I don't have all the answers to yet, but that are top of mind. What will the impact be of the isolation that families are experiencing at this time? In particular, vulnerable families. We're looking at probably at least a year, once all is said and done, if not even longer, that will have been in the state. So there will be, you know, long-term impacts, in particular, I think, for children. So these are questions that we're thinking through, as well as leveraging the opportunities. So we've seen in all of this upheaval, lots of opportunities. So, you know, the push for us to become virtual, we've seen people connect to our programs that otherwise would not have connected in other states, even in other countries. You know, the fact that I'm here with all of you across all the different borders. So we know that there will be opportunities as well that we're learning during this time. So our classes will no longer only be in person. Once we come back in the building, you know, they will have a virtual component moving forward. So there are some barriers that are also alleviated through this.
Nice, great. See the opportunities there, and to hold the questions. I really love how you do that. Like, to know that the answers will come. You seem to be very trusting that the answers will come when the time is right, and to just be holding those questions. So I really want to acknowledge you for that. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Before we open it up to questions, I have one more for you, Tanya, and that is, how has it been for you and your team to work? You know, we spoke about working virtually, and you know, this has probably been the most virtual project that we have ever done over a long period of time, right? I mentioned Peter in New Zealand, and Rod in the Netherlands, and Natalie in France, and how has that been to, and of course, Rod, you knew, and he spent time with you at the center a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. But maybe you can share a little bit with us. How has that experience been for you all?
Yeah. It's been interesting because we were beginning our work before the pandemic started. So we were already on that journey of figuring out, you know, time zones and technology and all of that before the pandemic started. I will say, I do think Rod's presence in Richmond on the front end did help, and with the relationship building. And I keep saying someday, somehow I will go to New Zealand and meet Peter in person. So, you know, that, you know, I don't want to minimize at all that human presence and connection. But with those connections there, then that virtual piece was able to work better and function, and bringing Natalie in was wonderful a little bit later in the work. And so it did work, but it was definitely multi-pronged, I'll say. And I think that's how it was able to work well, having those elements of the human presence and connection in addition to all of the virtual aspects.
Yeah. Beautiful. Great. Well, yeah, I have a few more possible questions here, but I would also just like, you know, we're at 4:30 here, so also very happy to open it up and see what kind of questions are out there with the people on the line. Just like last time, feel free to raise your hand and then I can unmute you. Or if you would like to ask a question using the Q&A chat, also can do that. Yeah. Here we go. Peter. Peter?
Yeah.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Morning, Peter.
Yes. Hi, everyone. And hi, Tanya. Good to talk and see you again, Tanya. In the question being that, you know, the near future, the unknown, but yet there's a sense of, a sense of opportunity, if you like, for change and change for impact, I guess, in the end. That must be, you know, that vein of thought that you have. In the work of consciousness, we know that, you know, every conscious act by yourself, by team, by the whole Sacred Heart Center adds ripples through to to the community and the stakeholders. My question and sort of is really to ask you whether or not you notice a greater awareness, not only within Sacred Heart Center, but of course with the community, and of course it's very new for them. But I notice a lot of new stakeholders, sponsors, contributors, funders. Do you see that that sort of higher level of awareness from the whole system ripple, perhaps outside of Richmond? Do you see that as a great possibility for change in the future, or something at least to leverage off?
I think so, Peter. Thank you for the question. What comes to mind is our vision. As you ask a question of the Sacred Heart Center, is that we envision a Richmond community that actively embraces each other in our shared humanity. So I think what you're speaking to about that ripple effect is, to me, it directly connects to our vision. If we're accomplishing our goals and working the way we'd like to work at the Sacred Heart Center and impacting the families that we serve the way we'd like to do that, it will ripple out into, at least specific to our vision, the Richmond community. And then we will be embracing each other in our shared humanity. So there won't be any more us and them. There won't be any more I'm up here and you're down here, but we'll be eye to eye in that embrace, which right now in our virtual environment, that idea of an embrace, un abrazo, is even more powerful, which is part of that vision. So hopefully that addresses your question. Now how long will it take for us to get there? That I don't know, but it is something I think that is embedded in the work that we're doing, and we try to speak to in our vision as an organization.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing to this as well, Peter, because I think for me, that's also part of the intention of this webinar, is to share stories, because stories have that ripple effect. I believe that's the power of story, is it can ripple out. So for me, that if I connect to the underlying intention of what we're trying to do here, it is to bring those stories to life, so that they can be visible by more people, and they can be embraced by more people, and they can inspire more people. So I think that rippling, and that expanding of consciousness is also inherent in what we're trying to do here with this webinar.
Yes, certainly to New Zealand, the story will be told.
Thank you for that question, Peter. Natalie, I see your question on the chat. Natalie's asking, the I and the we briefly spoke about that, Tanya. But the weaving, there was like a weaving of the I and the we. It wasn't like, okay, let's do the work on the I for 3 months, and then let's do the work on the we for 3 months. There was this beautiful weaving that I witnessed. And I think that there was something really powerful in that. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked?
Sure. My sense of it, we had our team, which was our culture team. These were the staff that were receiving the coaching with you all. And we would meet once a month. I would be in that meeting with Peter, Natalie, Rodrigo, and to share what they were experiencing, and then also to share how we were thinking about the we. So it was a very organic process, which I appreciate, and which sometimes I would say in the mainstream culture is not the ideal, is not seen, you know, because I would, in my opinion, it's about, you know, what's the end goal, right? And so this was a space to really allow the we to manifest organically. Mm. And we're still not done yet, being transparent. So we've got some actually really beautiful ideas on the table from the culture team. And so now the next phase of the work that we're working on with you all is how to, you know, continue to nurture that and see those things happen. So the word weave that you're using, I think is really appropriate because it really was, if you think, you know, the integration and the weaving, it was about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, yeah, lovely. Claudia.
Yeah.
Claudia?
Yeah, hello, Tanya. This is Claudia from Switzerland.
Hello.
I'm very curious to know, as you and your team, as a team together, what were the pillars or the behaviors or the attitudes you could hold on into the navigation of the unknown? Like, what has been central to you? Like, where could you relate, or what element was key for you in navigating the unknown as a team?
Yes, that's a great question. I think what's become certain to me in this time, and it wasn't that I didn't know this before, but it has really become clear, is that we have an amazing team at Sacred Heart Center. And of course, we're all flawed human beings, but ultimately the people on the team, you know, care about the work, and it's more than a job for us. And that ebbs and flows, of course, and then all of us have experienced different personal challenges through this as well. But that's, for me, as the leader, what I've held on and what became very apparent to me within the first few days of this pandemic. So the trust that comes out of that and the faith, I don't think that word's been specifically used, but alluded to in some of my comments, in my team, and that includes staff and volunteers and our board. So all of those levels, and even in myself, you know, I remember, you know, the panic that I experienced and really, you know, deep anxiety that I experienced at the beginning of the pandemic because of the unknown and the uncertainty and the pressure and that I was feeling, you know, to navigate our ship through the hurricane. So that's, I think, what I've held on to during this time. Thank you for that question.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Yeah, I'd like to add one thing to this, Tanya, because last time you also spoke about vulnerability. And I think there might be a connection here, right? At the showing up vulnerable is something around the unknown. Like, you know, when there's the unknown, we can either show up and pretend that we know what's going on and try to control what is really out of our control, or we can say, hey, you know, we're in this together, and I'm scared and I don't know, but you know, we are a great team, and you know, if we come together and we trust each other, we'll figure it out. Does that resonate with you, this idea of vulnerability and that playing a role in these times?
It does, and it's I've had to come to embrace that because I'm definitely an introvert by nature, and really work to express myself and to show up. So that may not be apparent, or may be apparent, I don't know. But I have learned and embraced that, you know, I have to navigate through it, but expressing and sharing that vulnerability is very important and makes me human to everyone else, and to myself, really. So, and within that is the piece of caring for self. So as a leader, and especially during this time, I've really had to be disciplined in how I am taking care of myself, because I have so many people relying on me, instead of just, you know, pushing myself to the edge of burnout. So it continues to be, for me, a personal journey, you know, being very, very honest and candid, something that I'm working on. But if anything, you know, the pandemic has pushed me further along as well. You know, again, another one of those opportunities for growth, and thinking of that seed, you know, again, bursting through the shell.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Jeff, what is going through your mind as you're tuning in? You're on mute. Yeah, there you go.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. I'm wondering if you could comment on the impact of the work that was done by the Being at Full Potential coaches on your ability to deal with the tremendous growth you've had.
Yeah. I think if I had to share a headline, it would be that the Being at Full Potential team was caring for us as we were caring for others. Which, you know, again, I think in our mainstream culture, the caregiver, you know, is the one always giving and not often receiving. So I do think that is a mind shift. You know, investing in the team is a mind shift. But it did allow us to continue and to keep moving forward during this really difficult time, caring for us as we were caring for everyone else. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Tanya. The second thing that comes to mind is that Sacred Heart is a faith-based organization, is it not? Yes. I'm just wondering, you know, the pandemic has tested a lot of people, and you guys as well. What tips might you have for other organizations that don't have the benefit of that sort of spiritual center that you might have being a faith-based organization?
I think the spiritual realm, you know, it does transcend any possible religious boundaries. We are a Catholic organization, and we're open to all. And we've offered a variety of ways to connect, because not everyone connects in the same way. So I've also appreciated from the team, you know, the opportunity for feedback from our team. So the Being at Full Potential team will always ask after any session, you know, for feedback and adjust as needed. And there may be some people on the team who connect with the moments of recentering, and others maybe not so much. So being open to using different tools, which has been the case, and offering the different tools and meeting people where they are is what's worked with us, because we have our value system as an organization, and we have people of different faith backgrounds that are part of our team as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, nice question, Jeff. And this idea of meeting people where they're at is coming back again, Tanya. It was a key idea that came in the call we had on Monday with with Laura from Teach for America. And so that's indeed a very, very important idea. And I think it actually has a spiritual essence in that idea, right? Of allowing and not judging a situation or people, or and being curious and open and adjust. So there are a lot of very deep qualities underneath that idea of meeting people where they're at. So I love that. All right. Well, we're coming very far in a very short period of time. It's amazing at what we've covered here. I feel like it's been very, very deep, and we've gone very broad too. Mm-hmm. So the floor is still open. We have 10 minutes. Now is the opportunity to ask your questions or share a thought. Feel free to do that. Maria Jose. Let me unmute you. Maria Jose,
yeah.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Beautiful, Tanya. I really listened to you. I am sitting here with a big smile on my face and listen to your vision and your dream. It's really not alone a beautiful way of showing as a leader to your team and your organization, but also for the whole world. So great invitation. And I really be very thankful meeting you here. And I'm aware about that rippling effect, and I will sure also expand that energy to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Jose.
Mark, I see a question for Peter in the chat.
Okay, can you read it out?
The question is, how did the framework of conscious culture come into play in this project? He's thinking of the white paper he co-wrote.
Oh, yes.
To the reality of implementing those ideas.
Yeah, I'm unmuting Peter. Peter, did you get that question?
Yeah, thanks, Rodrigo, for raising that, because I think, as Tanya said, one of the two pillars has always been culture. And of course, culture is a very big and sort of sometimes ambiguous word, but Tanya did clarify, for example, there is the culture of people, it's the greater community, and there is this inner culture. And yet culture is the same. It's essentially, if you want, my realization has always been that culture correlates with the level or the stages of consciousness of people within the organizations or within the community. And we can see how culture rises with, for example, civilization or within organization as it flourishes. The question really asked is, after writing the white paper, quite frankly, this was the first opportunity, though it presented itself across miles of our planet, connecting so many places. It became an even more interesting experience because it was virtual, for one. Secondly, it spans so many countries. And but thirdly, most importantly, it's community-based. As you said also, Tanya, culture is not often sort of addressed. One thing I want to say, my learning, first of all, and affirmation of what the white paper. First of all, we're talking about transformational leaders. I think one of the sort of indicators, if you like, of transformational leaders is their affiliation to culture. Of course, in Sacred Heart Center, we are talking about Latino community, that's culture. But what I'm referring to the organizational side, the sort of the leaning towards not only strategy, vision, and mission, and all the strategic goals, but also that soft, invisible side of culture. It's hard to define, but transformational leaders certainly sort of align itself with that and commit and work with it. That's the first point. And the second point in terms is this, and we had an excellent opportunity to see how culture works when there is literally total disruption. And when there's total disruption, culture or attention to culture at the deeper level, let's say of the pyramid, you have the outer manifestation, then you have your vision and mission. And particularly in this case, we have demonstrated that in times of disruption, it is the working with the deeper layers, all right, of culture. If you want to imagine a structure for culture, that's the pyramid. That's what shows, and the word that I'm going to use going forward through my learnings with you and your team is that just like we have quality of people, we also have quality of culture. And the quality of culture, correlates with the level of consciousness and the work in that deeper layer. So I think in the most simplest way, and you mentioned it too, Tanya, is that we become more human, that's all, in the end. And it's the deeper layer is nothing but, more than just being more human, being more fully human. And that's shows very clearly in spite of, the very interesting sort of way we had to work together. And it was certainly a huge, for myself, a growth and developmental experience.
So, Peter, I'm just wondering if I could ask a question, a follow-on question. When you say being more fully human at the deeper layers, I harken back to the framework that Mark brought up earlier on the house, and whether that framework and the dimensions that are captured gave rise to the opportunity to understand what that humanity really is and to what to work on, more or less.
Yeah, well, Jeff, very good question. And it's also part of my own sort of depth of learning as well. The house now speaks to me as being two streams of being fully human. And being fully human correlates or, resonates with the level of consciousness. The house, the being aware and the way that it is sort of put in the symbol of a house is the base. And this is our maturity, the developmental side of being aware of yourself, and so on. That's a developmental stream, which is what we call in behavioral science or social science or developmental science, we call that maturity. And that's where actually the wisdom Jeff, you mentioned a faith-based organization, or I think Tanya rightfully say, faith not in religion, but in spirituality. The awakening side, the spirituality side, then comes from the being inspired, being abundant, and particularly the threads towards being in service. So they're kind of like two developmental lines. One is in the growth of adult maturity and wisdom. The other one is the connection to intuition, all different kinds of intelligence, as Sujit once explained to me, the different kinds of intelligence, particularly intuitive intelligences and spiritual intelligences. So this house encapsulates this whole sort of growth or what do you say, expansion of consciousness, both cognitively and behaviorally, as well as intuitively and spiritually. Great question, Jeff, and it helps me to kind of realize this connection, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, fascinating, Peter, the way that you're bringing the house and connecting the dots there with culture. Thank you very much. Really, yeah, and we could, for everyone out there, we could organize a couple of hours just on conscious culture, and Peter could bring tons of wisdom on this topic, as you can probably tell. And if there is interest to understand this idea, this concept better, definitely reach out. We spoke about the white paper. We can share that with you. If any follow-up questions on this idea of culture and how does it play into organizations and the importance to bring the best out of an organization, definitely reach out, and we can set up separate calls on that one. Thank you so much, Peter, for giving us a deeper sense there. So we're getting close to the end of our hour together. It's been a very rich, very full hour. I just want to check in with Tanya. Are there any closing words that you would like to share?
I think I'll just once again reiterate my gratitude for you all, for the team that has been working with us. Again, coming back to taking care of those that are taking care of others, and thinking about that vision, that image of the ripple effect. So I'll look forward to whatever the next phase of the work brings. And thank you again for the invitation to share this morning here in Richmond. Yeah,
beautiful. Thank you so much, Tanya, for joining us. And Jeff, any closing words on your end?
Mark, I'm wondering if you just want to tell us a little bit about the next webinar that's upcoming, our final penultimate webinar coming up on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. So Monday at the same time, we will have a gentleman by the name of K.S. Saravanavatsan. It's not an easy last name, but he is the Vice President of Talent Development at Omega Healthcare Management Services, and has been a very great advocate for deploying this work inside of their organization of 10,000 people. It's quite a large organization, and they have really an amazing story to tell around how do you use the analytics that come out of the human potential assessment to really optimize the structure of an organization, and in particular optimize the team structure so that you're actually bringing the people together who have the right profile from a potential point of view to deliver the work. And so it's a really fascinating case study, and he will come and be talking to us about that. So I hope many of you will join us, and I look forward to the Monday session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Tanya, for your wisdom and your stories. Yeah. I trust that they will continue to ripple out into the world.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
All the best, everyone. Till the next time. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.